Hello! Thank you for joining me. My name is Tang. Today I'm going to talk to you about some work that my postdoc Leo Poretski and I did about design strategies for video game learnability. In the background here you can see the attract screen for Pac-Man that in a brief 30 seconds introduces you to all the characters of Pac-Man, the main mechanics of how to play, and how to die in that game. For an 8-year-old in the 1980s, clutching at 2 quarters, this is how you learned about video games in the arcade, how to play them, and you studied them at length. Today, the space of video games is different. Worlds are way more immersive. There's more content. They're beautiful. They can sense and even blend into my environment. These games and the mechanics that drive them are way more complex and vary from game to game. This is not too different from the computer systems that I use today as an adult. Here's an HR system for building human research protocols at for my university's REB. I have to figure out how to successfully enter in the protocols without errors. So it's a lot like the game, except a whole lot less fun, and actually if I do it wrong, I can get in trouble. The message of my talk today is that video games employ several common strategies to help players to learn about the game, how to play the game, and how to improve their gameplay. And in this work, we identify and label these strategies to provide guidance for game designers, and further, we describe how visual cues are used to build them. In this talk, we're going to focus on this part where we identify and label these strategies. Why explore design strategies at all? Design strategies are reusable, much like patterns in software engineering. Once we find one, we can use it in other games or other contexts altogether. Existing research work on learnability has focused primarily on work tools, feature-rich software such as Microsoft Word or AutoCAD applications, Photoshop, and the like. While we have folk knowledge about the need for learnability in games, we don't have well-documented understanding of how to improve the learnability of games. And so our idea here is to uncover this vocabulary of these design strategies to give us a way of thinking about and talking and exchanging knowledge about promoting and enhancing learnability in games. So how do we actually go about doing this? In our work, we studied 60 popular video games. We played some and we watched playthroughs of these games from the start. This type of playthrough is a very popular genre of video on YouTube. A quick search for video game walkthrough will produce results such as this one, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. You can see that this video is going to last 18 hours, but in our work we focused primarily on the first hour or so of gameplay. In our study, we identified instances where the game was either subtly or explicitly trying to teach the player something. And our analysis resulted in 11 strategies, which could be organized into 3 time periods relative to their appearance as it relates to gameplay. They could happen before you actually started playing. They could also happen while you were playing or during the gameplay. And finally, we noticed a category of design strategies around after gameplay or adjacent, which essentially means where there are interstitials or breaks in the gameplay. Today, I'm just going to focus primarily on these 4 strategies to explain the basic idea of the strategies, just to describe what they look like, how and when they were used. So first I'm going to talk about a few strategies during gameplay, which we saw quite frequently. So the first example is the practice in a sandbox idea. It's based on a simple idea. You allow the player to play the game in a sandbox level that looks and feels a lot like the game, but actually has no long-term consequences. The use of this strategy is very, very common, regardless of the game types that we saw. In this clip, we're watching the beginning of Call of Duty Mobile Edition. This is a game you play on your phone. And here, it allows you to play in a simplified, low-stakes version of the game. You can see here that it began with a simple tutorial about how to hold the phone and how to thumb around. Next, it shows you how to move. And it waits on you to execute those movements before it kind of moves to the next phase. Next, you can see here a sort of simple shooting drill where those enemies appear, but they don't actually shoot back. So this is a simple example of a practice in a sandbox strategy, and it allows the player to kind of figure things out without any long-term consequences. There's a lot of different variations of this basic idea. In this case, you saw it almost like operate like a wizard, right? You just keep hitting next. In other cases, it's almost like a free play zone or a free time zone that even allows for more flexibility. Another strategy that we saw a lot of was something that we call the invisible hand. So the core idea here is that the game designer uses diegetic cues or things that the protagonist in the video game would actually see to try to give you hints about interaction possibilities in the environment. Tomb Raider is a game where the protagonist scrambles around massive indoor and outdoor environments. And early on in the game, we can actually see on the right side, it kind of gives you a long hint, essentially, where the game actually tells you, hey, look, if you see paint on a wall, that's a place that you could scramble up the wall. And you can climb up this thing. And it becomes a very important kind of way of navigating and understanding the space. You can see here in this environment, there's lots of walls. Which of these are things that I can climb up on? What are the things that I can actually do? And so the notion that this part on the top right, this ledge on the right, is actually painted, tells me as a player, like, hey, this is a place that I can climb. And so this is a thing that you sort of incorporate into your gameplay. It becomes this thing where when you see paint, you know you can climb there. And so it shows up in all sorts of parts of the game. Some places it doesn't even make a lot of sense. Sixth Sense is another strategy that we saw a lot of that is related to that previous strategy. But in this case, because it provides you with these hints, these spatial overlays on top of the game world. But the slight difference here is that it's usually toggled on and off by a player via a toggle, so they can do it explicitly. Batman Arkham Asylum uses a very similar mechanic, but here it's called detective mode, which gives Batman superpowers. Here he can sort of get X-ray vision to see a bad guy, his heart rate, and also the weapon that he's carrying. So these are design strategies that we saw during gameplay. I want to turn my attention now to a strategy that we saw before gameplay. This is a strategy that we called recap. The recap is actually a very simple idea, but a very clever strategy that briefs players who have been away for a long period of time about what last happened in the game, or what might have happened when they weren't there. We see this strategy applied for games that have very long running times, narrative games or mobile games. Perhaps the best example of this in Clash of Clans. It's a mobile game where you create, little units and stuff like this. And it sort of, when you turn off the game, it sort of continues to play in the background. And here, some of the units have been upgraded, other units have been created, and so on. So recap allows the player to gain some information about what happened while they were gone. And we also saw this strategy applied for long-running narrative games that remind players, like, hey, you've been away for a little while, this is what happened in the story, just to kind of bring you up to speed. So having these phrases and ideas for these design strategies is really neat because it changes the way that we look at games as we play them. It also inspires us with really neat ideas, both for games and for feature-rich applications. So for example, here's Tony Hawk Pro, real cool dude kind of skateboarding game. And if you're like me, staying on the skateboard and not kind of bumping into anything is already a big win. But if you're an advanced player, you know that the rail on the left and that ledge on the top right there are places that you can actually skateboard on. Wouldn't it be cool if you could use that Sixth Sense strategy, and here's a mocked up screenshot of what that might look like, that actually tell you, like, hey, these are places that you can actually ride on. It'd be very useful for somebody who is trying to become an advanced player of this game. Because the only other way that you would learn these things is by watching other people or some perhaps painful trial and error. Here's how we could apply the recap idea to a feature-rich application such as Photoshop. The basic idea here is that when you come back and open up Photoshop again, it reminds you, hey, the last time you were here, you created a layer, you selected an object, you created a layer mask. Maybe you're going to do something along those lines. This brings you back up to speed and perhaps reminds you of what you were planning to do next. So just a quick wrap up and then to conclude, the message of our talk here is that video games employ several common strategies to help players to learn about the game, how to improve their game, and how to play, essentially. I invite you to read through the paper to learn more about the other design strategies, as well as the visual cue framework that we identified that designers use to build up these strategies. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm very happy to take your questions.